Growth sounds exciting from the outside. More revenue, more team, more opportunity. But from inside the business, growth often feels messy, stressful, and chaotic. Today's guest helps founders navigate the moment when success starts breaking the machine. Mickey Lyles is the founder of Emesia. That's Emesia? Yep, Emesia Growth Partners, where he works hands on with business owners to fix what breaks as companies grow. His focus is systems, leadership, and financial discipline. That turns into clarity. Mickey, welcome to Attention is the Currency. Great to have you on the show today.
Oh, Daniel, thank you for having me. I really appreciate it. I'm looking forward to having a chat with you and helping educate your audience.
Yes, well, no doubt everyone's excited to hear from you. You've got a wealth of knowledge, many years in business, and multiple sales of businesses successful, still running multiple companies as well. And brings us our first question. What usually starts breaking first when a business begins to scale?
Yeah, I think the owner in time, right? We know that most owners create their businesses out of their passion for doing whatever it is they're doing. So, for example, if they're a plumber and they go into the plumbing business because they've been working for another plumbing company and they don't really understand what it's going to take to scale the business and to develop all the things they're not used to seeing, paying insurance, dealing with, registrations on vehicles, signing contracts, the legal aspect, the marketing aspect, all of these things. So I think the first thing that breaks really is the psyche of the business owner because they don't know how to navigate their time.
Yeah. So it's normally growth creates more stress instead of more freedom. Is
Yeah, I was actually doing a podcast last week and we got into talking about this. People don't understand. They open a business, they're so excited. They tell all their friends and family, I'm opening a business, I get to be my own boss. And what they do is they create their own prison. And we know that most small business owners own a job, not a business. And they create their own prison where they can't even go on vacation. I always tell people this and they go, "Wow, that's so simple, but I never thought about it." Like the small business owner takes vacation, it costs them double what anybody else pays to go on vacation. They have to pay for the vacation and they don't earn any revenue in the business while they're gone. Until they get to that place where they can develop the systems and processes and have the right people in the right seats and create scale.
I know. Well, it is crazy. Well, it's yeah. I've been there myself, where you've got to save double for the time because you're away and you've got to put other things on or other staff or because the business isn't operating with any process in that sense. You're the centerpiece for the entire business.
That's right,
Uh,
100%.
And what's the biggest mistake founders make when revenue starts increasing?
uh, Creating reward too early. So in sort of the process that I like to teach that creates a lot of scalability. And just for context, and I don't say this to impress anyone, I just say it to impress upon them. These are the type of results you can get when you have the right process. We helped a pest control company scale from 5.5 million to 21 million. He exited to private equity for 79 million. And I can tell you that that founder emulated what I'm saying here, which is delaying reward. They start making a little money and a little revenue, and the next thing you know, they have a Lamborghini in the driveway or a Porsche, or they're tripling the vacations they're taking, and they don't realize that they're not quite there yet. Like on paper, the profitability is there, but if they're not reinvesting that in to get where they're trying to go. And so really, Daniel, it comes all the way back to step number two in my system, which is where are you trying to go? So if you're trying to build a $50 million revenue company, that plan and when you can take that profitability and start having fun with it is a lot different if you're trying to build a $5 million company versus 50 million. So it's just understanding what you're trying to accomplish and delaying the reward.
Yeah, it comes. I think success is different for everyone as well. But at the same time, I think that don't live beyond your means is a good step as well. Just because you can afford it doesn't mean you should pay for it.
Yeah, 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 absolutely. It's just being on a plan. is being on a plan and following that plan and being disciplined to that plan.
How can leaders tell the difference between growth problems and leadership problems?
So growth problems normally show up in the checking account. Leadership problems normally show up in the growth, not monetarily attached. Why can't we get more customers? Why are we losing customers? Why am I not able to exit the business? Because I'm still having to make all the decisions. Now we have a leadership problem. And so understanding how to build your team, how to train them appropriately, and then really it all boils down like all of these things we're talking about today are much deeper, but on the surface they're not that hard to understand. They're just hard to implement and to see through. But really I just say it like this, like when people can get to a point that they manage results instead of tasks, they know that they're succeeding in leadership. And I'll have people often say, "Well, give me an example," and I go, "Well, let's take cleaning a retail store for example. I can create a daily checklist, and I can tell the employee." Now I'm going to come in and do surprise inspections, and when I do, this checklist better be filled out every day. And the checklist says things like turn the open sign on and sweep the floor and vacuum the rugs. And you're micromanaging these tasks versus me saying an expectation of your job is that when I come in, the store is clean. And that's it. It stops right there. I don't need you to fill out a daily checklist. I just need you to make sure the store is clean. Now, when I come in, if it's not, then that's a conversation. But if it is, we know we got people who are leading and then following and we're managing outcomes and results, not tasks.
Not micromanaging. And it brings us to the why do so many founders struggle to stop working in the business?
To stop working in the business,
Yes.
mainly because they don't trust anybody and they're control freaks. And what they don't know, you and I know as business people, is because they haven't set up the right systems and processes. And quite frankly, I try to avoid that term because the internet has made it diluted. We help you build systems and processes, but the truth is that's how you get out. That's how an owner gets out of working on the day to day. And so here's an example for that. Let's say that you have a service-based company, say like a pest control or a heating and air company, HVAC, and you have vehicles, service technicians driving every day. If a transmission goes out in the truck and he hears it clunking and he pulls over on the side of the road, does he know exactly what to do? And does the service manager that he calls know exactly what to do? Or are you their first phone call? When people go, I don't really understand what you mean by systems and processes. I go, if you're laid up on a beach in the middle of St. Martin, can they figure out because the systems are in place what to do when the transmission went out on that truck? Are they in full blown panic mode? Who reschedules the calls? Do they get rerun that same day? Do they get pushed 3 days later? Do we have to, put out fires with upset customers now? Which tow truck company do we use? Which service repair company are we use? Like, is that process in place to resolve that problem without you being present? And there's a good, simple example that many owners go, holy crap, I've never thought about it like that. Yeah, like they normally call me and say something's happened. So that's why they can't get out because they don't have the right systems. But a lot of them don't build the systems because they don't know how, they don't trust, and they feel like they're the only ones that can do it right. And that is a recipe for you owning a job your whole life.
Yes. And I can relate, and it's something I shared with you before the call that I'm currently in the process of trying to separate myself out of the business. So it's very relatable. But often we do well. It was our baby that we started, and it's but I didn't. None of us started the business to be working in the business all the time. Of course, we love
Right.
helping people. We love serving people. We love to know that our business is doing what we set it up for. But what sort of mind shift set shift has to happen to become a true business leader?
You have to take ownership of where you're trying to go. I mentioned earlier having that plan, and I think it's very, very important that you understand where you're trying to go. And then you have to understand that nobody's going to do it for you. I hear a lot of excuses where it's like, if only I had more money, I could grow. If only I could find the right people, I can't find the right people. Like we have to let go that anybody else is going to create the success for you. Do we need help? Absolutely. Do we need employees? Absolutely. But it's up to us to solve all those problems and quit waiting on somebody else to come save us. And I think that true scalability comes when we take ownership of our destiny, and no matter how hard it is or how long it takes, we climb that hill consistently without ever stopping or giving up. I actually heard Ed Milet. I don't know if you're familiar with Ed Milet, but big, powerful American business guy, $500 million company. And he talks about his dad being an alcoholic and becoming sober and them having a great existence together later in life. And he asked his dad one time, Dad, do you think you'll be sober forever? And he said, I don't know, son, but I'm going to be sober one more day. And he just took it one day at a time. And I think as business owners, when it gets hard and we don't know what to do or what the next move is, or, we're in that uphill climb, we have to just keep reminding ourselves, just give it one more day. Just give it one more day.
No, I love that. And as we know from being business owners, business does have seasons as well, and it has those challenges. And yeah, so sometimes I know that for the past 5 years before now, every business has had different development challenges and uncertainty in there.
Yeah, 100%. And you have to be able to pivot. And I've walked this walk. You do everything right. You set everything up. You have the right general manager in place or CEO, and you're where you can take time, and the business is running, and you're making money. And then everything comes unraveled to no fault of your own, whether it's a pandemic, whether it's that you lose an employee, there's an unexpected death. I actually have a client who unfortunately passed away last week, and he's got three businesses, and it's like everybody's like, now what? So things happen, but then it pulls you back into the business. And you have to be able to switch that, flip that switch and get right back into that mindset of now I've got to go do what I've got to go do. And sometimes people get complacent in that season where things are going really well. And then when they're pulled back into the business, they're almost disgruntled. And I've actually seen them ruin the business from that point on because it's like, I don't want to be here anymore. So you have to be able to flip that switch for seasons for sure.
That definitely was. Yeah, well, life does happen, and yeah, we I know from experience we can make it worse on ourselves, but well, it's like that saying where you shoot at the other three tires because you got one flat. Is always.
Exactly.
And what simple systems create the biggest impact early?
Um, I think procedural systems that are if you did it on a scale of 1 to 10, like your level 1 to level 5 tasks. Dan Martell says it best in his book, Buy Back Your Time. You have to run a time equation. What is your time worth? And why are you doing a $20 an hour task if you're a $250 an hour guy? And so for me, creating the quickest growth and the quickest scalability is outsourcing or insourcing, but to some other person, those level 1 to level 5 tasks that owners get tied up in doing. I mean, I remember a point in my career where it was like I was real good with Excel and very data driven on all of my businesses. And then I'd look and be like, man, you're doing the same kind of spreadsheets you were doing 18 years ago. Like, why are you still doing these? And I went and hired somebody and was like, sure, I'm capable of it. Sure, it gives me the data. But if I'm spending, and now with AI and automation, these things can assess spreadsheets in seconds. But I'm talking just a few years ago, kind of before this big AI boom, it was like I just hired somebody and said, look, I need you to pull all my data, do all my research, and just deliver me one crisp email with the results. So finding those low value but high impact tasks early on and getting those assigned to somebody else, I think creates speed to scalability.
Yeah, no, that's well, yeah, as you know, I've got a bit of experience in the VA industry, and it's just it makes a world of difference. And I think that was really the biggest pivot point from my early days as a small business owner. So it's amazing advice, and I hope everyone's taking notes on this because Mickey's dropping a lot of gold in this. And if we only knew all this many years ago, it's it cuts down the growth process. So, where do businesses lose the most money during their growth as well?
During the growth, I think human capital, hiring the wrong people, hanging on too long. There's plenty of statistics out there that people can research on what the cost of turnover is, but it can be expensive when you hold on to somebody for 3 or 4 months that's not getting the productivity. I like where Gary Vee says hire fast, fire faster, promote fastest. And I'm from the deep south in the Carolinas, and so we're pretty mannerful people. And a lot of business owners in my region, they just hold on too long. They want to be nice. They recognize people have families, but people also have a fiduciary duty to do their jobs and do it well. And we know that in an interview process, people are going to say what you want to hear. They're going to put their best foot forward. I love Dave Ramsey has a 12-step hiring process and very thorough, but certainly having one of the interviews is a working interview, going to dinner one night with the spouse to make sure you're aligned. And he has this great question that most people don't ask. There's always this counterintuitive balance between what the company is trying to pay and what the prospective employee wants to get paid or thinks they should get paid. And sometimes the company doesn't have a choice. It's like, hey, we've looked at the market. This is what we can afford to pay this role. Can the person you're hiring afford to take the role? Not whether they think it's worth it or not, but physically, can they afford to take the role and understanding, where their lifestyle is? Because if they can't, as soon as they take the job, they're going to be looking for an exit, and then it just becomes a big waste of time. So I think human capital is where you have a lot of waste, and then the wrong marketing channels. I mean, just understanding what the right marketing channels for you are. There are still industries, even in our AI generated automation world, where for certain businesses, human interaction has still got the highest ROI, which means still going to a trade show where you can shake hands and meet people versus just sitting back and just pounding Facebook sponsored ads or things like that. So definitely human capital, I put number one, and then knowing where to spend your marketing dollars and being quick to shift and pivot in that would be number two.
Yeah, no, that's great answer. You got to go where your clients are as well, because yeah, I've always been a fan of it. Even I still sometimes send out paper mail as well, where people don't
Yeah,
are reluctant to send out a cold letter. But if nobody else is sending out a cold letter, you're ahead of it. And
that's
even
right. That
e-
that and there was one I looked at last week, micro gifting. I don't know if you've heard that, but
I haven't heard
depending
of
on
it.
your budget, but
Yeah,
micro gifting would be sending a small token to somebody that's not a client to get their attention because everybody's coming at them, right? But who sent them a box of chocolates, or who sent them a $15 gift card to Starbucks? Like just micro gifting, when you look at it as a marketing play and you adopt it into your marketing budget, it can be fairly affordable with a good ROI.
yeah. I guess well, that's also meeting where your clients are at. If you're only getting clients that are if you're getting clients that are paying thousands of dollars a month, definitely worth it on the
Yeah.
ROI scale. But yeah, I love that, and I have done a little bit of the micro gifting as well, but normally at the moment I do the bulky mail where you feel the envelope. There's something hard in
Yeah.
there. You sometimes put a little toy car or something in there, so people tip it out, and you can just imagine going, "What is this?" So,
Yeah, a
uh,
hundred percent. I think I'm going to explore because I wouldn't have coined this idea. I read about it, but I have a book coming out in like maybe May, and you look at the cost to print a book, $5 or $6 US.
yeah,
Mail the guy a book. Like if you have a target client, guy's running a $5 million business, a $10 million business, and you can impact him, mail him a copy of your book with a handwritten letter. Like I still think that's very valid, even in this digital age that we live in.
100%. Yeah, it's your best business card is your own work in that book.
Yeah,
That's
absolutely.
and why do profitable businesses still feel broke?
What profitable businesses?
Why do they still feel? Why do profitable businesses still feel broke?
Yeah, it still goes back to leadership and ownership. When you ask that question, my brain goes to the trades. I do a lot of work in the trades, pest control, termite, um, HVAC, plumbing, electrical, pool cleaning, lawn and landscape, those types of industries. it is very easy to get a business like that profitable. I mean, there's the client count is almost seemingly never ending, right? They're building houses as fast as they can build them, and every house opens opportunity for the trades to pick up service contracts, annual contracts, and things like that. But the growth within a service company can grow so fast, far faster than the leadership ability, the leadership training, the knowledge of the leader, and even the mindset of the leader. And I meet a lot of them. I mean, let's take a plumbing company. They might be doing $2 million, and they might be very proud of themselves. And their family and their friends are like, oh, he's doing so great. But the reality is, I can look at that business and say, here's the problem. He should be a $5 million company. And he's only two because his mindset's not there. His leadership ability's not there, but they got to 2 million just because the sheer market allowed it.
And what financial habits should every growing business adopt? I think you touched
Trying
on
to
this.
be, in my opinion, trying to be debt free as quick as you can. There's an old saying, a penny saved is a penny earned. And in my business strategy, when I work with clients, number three in my system that I build is margin, create margin. And I think when people hear that word, they always talk about or think about increasing the top line revenue to create margin. But here's the thing, if we start here and I increase top line, I can create margin, or I can decrease expenses and create margin. But if I do both, I create a lot of margin. So understanding what debt is good debt and what debt is bad debt, and trying to reduce debt pressure as quickly as possible. That is a very broad opinion depending on the type of industry. There's billion-dollar companies that grow extremely large using debt service. But remember, I primarily work with small to medium-sized businesses under 50 million. And so in those instances, especially under 20 million, trying to reduce debt pressure helps.
I'd say that, well, it also depends on what they're spending it on. I'd say because not every single one of the executives need to drive a luxury car.
Exactly. Well, I see it. I see it. Boys like toys.
Yes.
And when you take a guy who runs an HVAC business or a termite and pest control business and they start making a little money, they'll upgrade their trucks sooner than need be. And they don't recognize that they're buying a depreciating asset versus when I said earlier in the interview, reinvest and bet on yourself, like delay the reward. We're talking about spending that in customer acquisition, increasing footprint, like whether it's opening another branch in another town. But all of those decisions go back to your personal roadmap. Where are you trying to go? I mean, if you were that $2 million plumber and you've accomplished your goals, you're bringing home what you wanted to bring home, you get to take every Friday off, then good for you. Then do what you want to do. But if your roadmap says you were going to build a $10 million company, well, now we got to understand how to use debt appropriately and then how to reinvest profit. So it all goes back to, being on the right path.
What leadership habits separate sustainable businesses from burnout stories?
What leadership habits? Well, I'm a big John Maxwell guy. So, like the 21 irrefutable laws of leadership or the five levels of leadership. But for me, I think it's just, again, hiring the right people and training appropriately. Because we can make that mistake on both sides of that coin, right? We can hire the wrong people, then been slow to fire, or we can hire the right people and not train them right. But at the end of the day, in order for you to buy back your time and to work on the business instead of in the business, you got to have the right people. So I think when you talk leadership habits, it's like, are we educating ourselves? I ask rooms when I speak in front of leadership groups or conferences or for private corporations. I always ask this question to a room full of middle level and upper level managers. Where did you learn how to be a manager? And I promise you, it wasn't at a university. It wasn't at a college. My daughter has her MBA in business. And at 23 years old with an MBA, you don't know how to lead, right? They didn't teach you that. And so, everything else in life you got to get a license for. You want to drive a car, you got to get a driver's license. You want to be married, you got to get a marriage license. But you want to be a manager, you just got to convince somebody you're a manager and you're a manager. So there's such a big difference between being a manager and a leader. And so just having the right people and then training them correctly.
And how does strong communication shape business success?
Yes, so I'm an over communicator. I train people to just communicate everything. So I still do this basic little drill and leadership trainings that we get a kick out of every time we do it. Well, I bring a loaf of bread, a jar of peanut butter, a jar of jelly, a fork, a knife, and a spoon, and everybody in the room has to write a one-page how-to paper on how to build a peanut butter and jelly sandwich. And it is hilarious because you'll end up with people that write one paragraph. You'll end up with people that write a front and back page. But if it says put the peanut butter on the bread, then I literally just grab the whole jar of peanut butter and put it on the bread and it smashes the bread. Versus with your left hand, grab the jar of peanut butter. With your right hand, unscrew the lid. With your right hand, pick up the knife, insert it into the jar, scoop out the peanut butter. You see the difference in that
Yeah.
communication there. And so certainly we have a lot of tools now, whether it's Slack or whether it's, Microsoft Teams messaging, there's no lack of opportunity to communicate. So for me, I like to teach over communication. I don't think anybody's ever failed by over communicating other than just annoying someone, but lots of things have been dropped and things have fallen between the cracks when you under communicate and don't communicate expectations, the desired results, not to mention communicating systems and processes and the way things are supposed to be handled, deadlines, things of that nature. So I just believe in over communicating
Yeah, always making sure that all the details are in check. Because
for
it's
sure.
yeah. Well, I always find in my business is always setting expectations is always a good thing for staff, and it's yeah, highly valuable. And if if someone feels overwhelmed by growth right now, where should they start? How can they start working with you? What should be their first step?
Yeah, overwhelmed by growth. I'd love to have a new client that's overwhelmed by growth that's actually making good money. I feel like we get a lot of clients that are struggling on how to get into that stage, right? So, overwhelmed by growth is a good thing because with margin, you can solve a lot of problems. There's an old saying in business that sales solves all problems, which basically means money solves all problems. So, we can learn, right? If we're business owners, we were good at what the widget was that got us into the business. We can always learn to be a better leader, learn to diversify our funds, learn how to spend our money differently in marketing, learn how to chase that goal and that dream that we set up. So, for me, and this gets a little repetitive, but all roads lead back to where the client is trying to go. So they're like, wow, I went into this. This is a cool story. I had a bakery that I worked with one time, small bakery, and they were doing $1 million a year selling cookies and cakes and pastries. But the owner, she was like, when I set out to do this, she never had a roadmap, but she never envisioned doing $1 million. She was just like, she just wanted to do a couple 100,000, pay her bills, and maybe make 60 or 70 grand, for her house. Like just it was better than going to work for somebody else. But her product was so good it took off. And so when you talk about you're overwhelmed but in growth, we actually helped her open 5 locations in 3 different cities. And she got to where she was doing like $6 million a year in the bakery business. And she never even imagined being able to grow to that. So if you're in that stage, that's easy peasy. You just tell me where you want to go and we can develop a plan because you've got money. The harder side of that is when I want to be 10 million and I'm only 600,000 and I'm not profitable. That's the harder equation.
Yeah. And they can jump onto your website to have that chat as well. So it's
Oh,
the
oh yeah,
first
to
place to start.
contact
Yeah.
us.
Yes.
Yeah, a measure of growth partners is the name of my company. It's IMMEASURA.com, a measure.com. You can go right there and book a call with me or one of my consultants. It's a strategy call. There's no cost to it. We just like to learn about your business, understand what you're trying to accomplish, and try to meet you where you're at. And we're really quick. If we don't think we're a good fit or the right partner, we're really quick to tell you that and try to steer you in the right direction. But those that we work with, knock on wood, we've got 100% success rate because I'm selective about who we work with and I try to figure out where the company and the owner is trying to go. And if I can create that path to help them, then we help them.
That's perfect, and we'll make sure that the links are in in the description as well. So anyone that's listening to this call can connect with Mickey, and anywhere your business is, if you're in those stages or you want to see if his Mickey and his team can help, feel free to jump on there and book in one of those calls. And our signature close question for the interview, which is, if attention is the currency, what should people stop wasting it on and start investing it in?
It goes back to something I mentioned earlier. Stop waiting on someone else to come be your hero. Spend your time focusing on your dreams and goals. When I was in my 20s, I saw a poster and I was working for someone, and the poster said, "Go build your dream, or someone else will pay you to build theirs." And in that moment, my life changed. I said, I'm going to be an entrepreneur. I want to own my own time. I want to own my own outcomes in my own life. So, with your time, it's one of the greatest currencies that you have. Go invest it in what you're trying to do.
Excellent, perfect. Uh, Mickey Lyles just unpacked the real work behind scaling a business the right way. If this conversation resonated, share it with a business owner who needs to hear it. And if you would like to connect with Mickey, we'll make sure that all the links are there. Thanks again for joining us.
Thank you for having me, Daniel. I appreciate it.